This is Cine Script, where movies get retold, scene by scene.
The movie opens in the house of Clyde Shelton, a Philadelphia engineer, with his daughter besides making a bracelet. Shortly he hears a knock on the door, but upon opening he gets hit with a bat. The burglars name Darby and Rupert tie him and attack his wife and hit her ruthlessly. Darby then rapes her as Clyde witnesses and then stab both of them and sarcastically tells Clyde,
"You can't fight fate."
His 5-year-old daughter also dies at the hands of the burglars. We get introduced to a prosecutor named Nick Rice who is career-minded. He is so ambitious of raising his conviction rate, which is at 96%. Shortly he gets called by the district attorney, and the two discuss on how to handle Clyde's case. When Nick meets Clyde, he informs him that Darby accepted to testify against Rupert. This would mean that Rupert would be convicted to death row, but Darby would only be guilty to third-degree murder.
Even when Clyde claims that he witnessed their faces, Nick informs him that he blacked out, meaning his testimony cannot incriminate either man. Interested in maintaining his 96% conviction rate, Nick already cut the deal with Darby, which leaves Clyde betrayed. During the court session, Darby signs on the deal papers and tells Nick that Rupert deserved it because you cannot fight fate. Upon moving out, Nick feels happy because his conviction rate is now at 97%. And while he is done talking to the press, Darby shows up. He thanks him for the deal, though Clyde stands across the street witnessing everything, though Nick gets shocked with his presence. Back home, Nick stays with his pregnant wife named Kelly Rice, and the two seem to be doing well. 10 years later, Kelly already gave birth to Denise Rice, who Nick loves a lot. Kelly asks him if he would be attending her recital at school, but Nick informs her that he would be busy at work. While Denise is on her recital presentation, Nick with his co-worker named Sarah have come to witness the execution of Rupert via lethal injections. It is supposed to be a peaceful death, and before the procedure, Rupert says his last words. He informs them that they are gonna kill the wrong person because he wasn't the one that killed Clyde's family. When the procedure begins, Rupert begins to weaken slowly, but upon the last injection things turn around unexpectedly. Rupert dies in agonizing pain, which shocks everyone, and it is later revealed that it was because of the alteration in the chemicals. With the words, "You can't fight fate," the initial evidence leads back to Darby, hence Nick alerting the police to go after him. While in his hideout, Darby receives a call from a mysterious person who tips him on the police, which is coming for him, and it could get worse if they find him with drugs. The mysterious caller helps him to escape, but orders him to leave the gun behind because it contains his fingerprints. He directs him to a police car where Darby finds another gun and forcefully tells the officer inside to drive. They drive to an abandoned site where Darby forces the officer out of the car. Unexpectedly, the officer turns out to be disguised Clyde, who all along was on the call with Darby. Darby tries to shoot him with the pistol, only to discover it is a trick gun which injects him with tetrodotoxin. It paralyzes him but leaves him fully conscious, hence Clyde taking him to an abandoned warehouse to torture him. He ties him up and injects him with adrenaline so that he doesn't faint. He reminds him how it feels to be helpless because he witnessed him while he killed his family. Clyde then sets the camera to record the events, and after covering his face he gets a machine to cut Darby. On the other hand, Nick and Sarah are still looking into Darby's files, but Nick doesn't think it adds up Darby being behind the murder. The police reaches Darby's bloody scene, and upon calling Nick, his suspicion runs to Clyde. Upon checking his files, it is revealed that Clyde in the past years has been buying different properties. While the police heads to the possible place where they expect him, Clyde puts off all his clothes. His intention is to let them know that he is unarmed, and when they reach, he doesn't even resist the arrest as he was expecting them. Upon searching his premises, they come across a law book and a photo of Nick shaking hands with Darby. The scene jumps to the prison where Clyde is sitting silently with all the surveillance on him. Back at Nick's house, Denise receives a DVD hoping it is her recital presentation, but things turn around. It is the video that Clyde recorded while cutting Darby. In an interrogation cell at the jail, Nick covertly congratulates him for removing Darby from society off camera and then sit down to get his confession. Nick asks him if he killed Darby. Clyde reluctantly replies that he would have wanted it but doesn't clearly state that he killed him. Nick then asks him if he had a hand in Rupert's death. Clyde again tells him that he would want him dead too. Clyde gives Nick a hard time because he doesn't directly confess to the murders. Knowing that Nick is fond of making deals with murderers, Clyde informs him that he would provide him with a deluxe mattress in his cell in exchange for the real confession. Nick refuses to cut the deal, but as he leaves he receives a call from Kelly who informs him about the DVD that their daughter just watched. This forces Nick to agree to the deal, hence delivering the mattress that Clyde requested for. Back to the law firm, they are still digging more about Clyde, and it is learnt that he bought 9 industrial properties, but they can't trace them since he transferred them to a certain corporate. While in court, Nick doesn't want Clyde to get bail, but when Clyde stands to give his say, he informs the judge that the prosecutor doesn't have any evidence on the charges against him. Clyde opposes a motion to deny himself bail, citing obscure legal precedents. Judge Laura Birch, who also presided at Rupert's trial, agrees, but Clyde launches into a tirade against the court's preference for legal technicalities over justice. He is removed for contempt of court. Back at the cell, Nick meets Clyde again for the confession, and given that Nick had provided him the mattress, he reveals the truth. He gives Nick the specifications of the murders, which proves that he is saying the truth. Thinking that everything is done, Clyde then makes another request for an expensive steak dinner at Del Frisco's in exchange for the location of Bill Reynolds. Bill Reynolds was Darby's attorney who was reported missing 3 days back. Clyde makes it specific that the meal should be delivered at precisely 1 p.m. The food gets delivered, but Nick and his team delay providing that to Clyde, saying that prisoners don't have access to time, so he should wait. After 8 minutes pass when they provide Clyde with a meal that he requested for. He asks Nick what time it is, and the warden informs him that it is 8 minutes past 1. He takes it easy even though he had told them precisely 1 p.m. He provides them with the coordinates where they can find Bill Reynolds, and when they leave he invites his cellmate to join him on the meal. As the two enjoy the meal, Clyde shockingly murders his cellmate with the steak T-bone as a knife. On the other hand, Nick and his team arrive at the possible location of Bill Reynolds, but they find Reynolds buried alive and only minutes dead. His oxygen tank having been set to shut down at 1:15 p.m. Dunnigan explains that because Clyde received his lunch at 1:08 p.m. they were 7 minutes late instead of getting to Reynolds in time to save him. Nick receives the shocking news that Clyde killed his cellmate and has been sent to solitary confinement. Nick visits Clyde in the solitary and asks him if he murdered Bill Reynolds because his lunch was late. Clyde informs him that everyone has to be held accountable for what happened to his family. Sarah finds evidence of contract payments to Clyde from the Department of Defense, so the head DA Jonas Cantrell takes Nick to meet a CIA operative Bray who worked with Clyde. They learn that Clyde was once a CIA brain working in a black ops think tank on unconventional methods of killing targets. He also warns them that he's only in jail because he wants to be in jail, and that each thing he does has a deeper meaning. When Nick asks how they should deal with Clyde, Bray advises them to walk into his cell and put a bullet in his head. Otherwise they cannot stop him. As he leaves he says, "If Clyde wants you dead, you're dead." Nick and Cantrell try to convince Judge Birch to violate Clyde's civil rights and restrict his visiting privileges, which he reluctantly agrees to. Minutes later, Judge Birch answers a cell phone which explodes, killing her instantly, leaving Nick and Cantrell shocked. At the prison, Nick confronts Clyde, who says these killings are not about revenge, but about the failure of the justice system. He gives Nick a last chance and informs him that unless he is released with all charges dropped by 6 tomorrow, he would kill everyone. With this threat, the members of the district attorney's staff congregate to look into further details of Clyde's properties. Sarah suggests that they would track his expenditure, which would give them a lead on the properties he bought. As the time nearly clocks 6, everyone seems worried on what would happen, but suddenly it clocks 6 and nothing happens. Nick then tells everyone to return home while knowing that nothing would happen. While in the parking lot, the bombs planted underneath their cars go off and kill those inside, with Nick witnessing. Sarah also meets the same fate, and it is revealed that only Nick's car wasn't tampered with. At the mayor's office, the mayor wonders how Clyde keeps killing people yet he is jailed. Nick believes that he might be having an extra hand outside the prison. Nick goes to meet Clyde again, and to let his anger out he hits him multiple times, blaming him for killing 7 innocent people. Clyde, however, informs him that the war has just begun since Nick sided with the murderers when he had to do the right thing. After attending Sarah's funeral, an unseen man wearing black clothing powers up a remote-controlled drone armed with a rocket launcher and a .50 caliber machine gun. He sends an EMP to jam the vehicles and shortly start to shoot the SUV in which the DA was driving in. Injured and helpless, he gets finished as Nick watches helplessly. Back at the mayor's office, the mayor is disappointed with Nick's failure to stop Clyde. However, she appoints him as acting district attorney of Philadelphia. With his new position, Nick begins with looking into the case files relating to the murder of Clyde's family and the people he has killed so far. Shortly, he gets informed that he used a weaponized bomb disposable robot which is remote controlled. Nick receives a notification message on Sarah's computer with information on Clyde's corporate expense records. This gives Nick a lead to track down the 9 properties that Clyde had purchased in the last 10 years. Nick with Dunnigan move to one of the properties, which happens to be next to the prison where Clyde was detained. They break in and it is an abandoned garage with some covered vehicles inside. While checking around, they come across a tunnel which presumably leads to the prison. Upon moving down for further investigations, they come across explosive materials, schematics and things used in disguise. They then discover that the tunnel system leads to the solitary and figure out that he intentionally killed his teammates so that he could be moved to the solitary. Upon reaching his cell, they get shocked that he is missing and wonder where he could be. They further learn that he has cameras monitoring the whole prison and shortly come across fake janitor documents, which alerts them that he could be at the city hall. Disguised as a janitor, Clyde arrives at the city hall where the mayor is to have a security meeting. He plants a cell phone-activated napalm bomb in City Hall, planning to kill the mayor and anyone attending her meeting. After his move, Clyde then moves out unnoticed and escapes Smiley. Nick and Dunnigan drive faster to the City Hall and Nick orders for the bomb squad and Homeland Security. Upon reaching the City Hall, they get informed that the meeting would be on the 6th floor, hence moving to the 5th floor to check out. Upon reaching there, they come across a briefcase and upon opening it slowly, they come across the bomb. It is revealed that it is so powerful to hit 2 floors and that any incoming call would be detonating it. While suggesting to notify the mayor, Nick declines that while knowing that Clyde is monitoring the mayor. They leave the meeting to proceed as planned, though Clyde has also moved back to his garage and confirms the meeting is taking place. After setting his detonating phone, he moves back to his cell. Shockingly, he finds Nick inside already waiting for him. Nick asks him what he is doing because no matter how many people he kills in revenge for his family, it is a wastage of time. Clyde sarcastically asks him if he wants to make for him any deal, and Nick informs him that he no longer cuts deals with murderers, thanks to Clyde who taught him the lesson. While holding the phone, Nick tells Clyde that if he presses the phone, it's a decision you'll have to live with for the rest of your life. Jolton decides to detonate the napalm bomb anyway, but as Nick exits and locks the cell, he calmly says, "Like I said, it's a decision you'll have to live with for the rest of your life." He then begins to flee the building, and at the same time Dunnigan seals the hatch in the back of the cell to ensure Clyde doesn't escape. Clyde realizes that the bomb was placed under his cot but merely smiles and stares thoughtfully at a bracelet his daughter had made for him which says Daddy. The cell explodes with the last shot of Clyde alive being of him looking up with an almost satisfied expression. In the final scene, Nick is seen attending his own daughter's music recital, an event he had previously put off due to work. He rises with the crowd as they cheer her on after the performance, bringing the movie to the end.